My team lead mocked me in front of everyone, saying, "She's like our emotional support worker, always smiling, always clueless." When I tried to speak up, he cut me off. "Relax, it's just jokes. You should thank us for keeping you around." So I waited, quietly recording every instance of his jokes, compiling a timeline that HR couldn't ignore. When they called him into a private room, he emerged pale, clutching a box of his things. "Hey everyone, this has been sitting heavy on me, so I decided it's finally time to lay it all out. Maybe it'll help someone who's stuck like I was. I work for a logistics company in Fort Worth, Texas. Been here almost 4 years. It's not my dream job, but it's solid. Pays my bills. Gives me insurance. I've always been the type to keep my head down, do good work, not stir up drama. Maybe that's why Mark thought I was an easy target." Mark was my team lead. He'd been around a long time and he knew it. He wasn't the worst worker, but he acted like he was the smartest guy in every room. Loud, braggy, always cracking jokes that were more cruel than funny. People laughed because it was easier than being his next victim. At first, he left me alone. I guess because I didn't stand out. I wasn't flashy. I just did my work, smiled at everyone, tried to keep things light. But once we started doing more team projects together, I guess I got on his radar. One Monday morning, a group of us were waiting on coffee. I was chatting with a few people when Mark strolled up, grinning. Without any warning, he said, loud enough for the whole floor to hear, "There she is. Our little emotional support worker, always smiling, always clueless." People laughed. Not everyone. Some just looked away. I froze. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't clueless. I was good at my job. Better than some of the people laughing. I tried to speak up, maybe joke back or call him out. But before I could, he waved me off. "Relax, it's just jokes. You should thank us for keeping you around." That hit harder than anything else. Like I was some charity case. Like I didn't earn my spot. I swallowed it. Pretended it didn't bother me. But inside, it cut deep. After that, it became almost a game for him. Every meeting, every project check-in, he had to throw a jab my way. "Don't let her touch that spreadsheet. She might delete the whole thing. Careful giving her numbers, she still counts on her fingers. Smile and nod, that's her strategy." The worst part? Management would laugh too. Not always. But enough times that I realized nobody was going to step in. I started dreading coming to work. I went from being early every day to dragging myself in right at the bell. I barely spoke in meetings. I stopped volunteering for projects. I thought maybe if I stayed invisible, he'd lose interest. He didn't. One Friday, we had a team lunch. Supposed to be casual, fun. We all sat outside at some picnic tables by the loading dock. I tried to stay near the nicer people, but Mark found me anyway. He started telling some dumb story about a mistake I made months ago, a minor typo that didn't even matter, and twisted it into this whole comedy routine about how I was the team mascot, not an actual worker. Everyone laughed. Harder than usual. Like they were relieved to have someone else to look down on. I sat there, smiling, pretending I was okay. But inside, I snapped. I knew I couldn't take much more. That night, I cried for hours. Not because I was weak. But because I was furious and powerless and trapped. Or so I thought. I started documenting everything. Every comment. Every meeting. Every time he laughed at my expense. I wrote it all down in a private file, with dates, times, exact words, and who was there. I took screenshots of emails and Slack messages where he made harmless jokes about me being slow or confused. Then I checked Texas state law, one-party consent for recordings. As long as I was part of the conversation, I could legally record. So I did. I started turning on my phone recorder at the start of every team meeting, every casual gathering. I got clips of him mocking me, laughing about it. Other people joining in. Management not stopping it. Some days I didn't catch much. Some days he handed me gold. I kept my head down and stayed patient. The perfect setup. After about 4 months of gathering, we had a huge project come through. A big client. A big opportunity. I volunteered to lead a piece of it, partly to prove to myself that I still could, partly because I knew if it went well, Mark wouldn't be able to resist. I worked my ass off. Double-checked everything. Stayed late. Ran reports 2 and 3 times. When the project wrapped up early and under budget, even management praised me in the meeting. For half a second, I thought maybe it was over. But Mark couldn't help himself. He leaned back in his chair, arms behind his head, and said, loud and clear, "I'm shocked she didn't mess it up. Must have been a fluke." He laughed. A few others chuckled nervously. And my recorder, tucked neatly in my jacket pocket, caught every word. I stayed late that night. I finished organizing my file. Recordings, emails, written logs. I wrote a cover letter explaining the pattern of harassment, how long it had gone on, and how it created a hostile work environment. I sent it all to HR. I didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. I thought maybe nothing would happen. Maybe they'd ignore it. Maybe they'd fire me. Instead, 2 days later, HR scheduled a private meeting with Mark. I sat at my desk, pretending to work, feeling like my heart was about to explode. The meeting lasted about 45 minutes. When the door opened, Mark came out. He wasn't laughing anymore. His face was white. He was sweating. He had a cardboard box in his hands, the kind they give you when you have to pack up your desk fast. He didn't say a word to anyone. Just walked out the door. Later that day, HR sent a company-wide email, "We are committed to maintaining a respectful and professional workplace. Mark is no longer with the company, effective immediately." No one said his name out loud again after that. After Mark was fired, things were weird. For a few days, the office felt off. People walked on eggshells around me. They weren't sure what to say. Some were overly nice, offering fake smiles and coffee. Others barely looked at me. I guess they figured out pretty fast who had pulled the trigger. I wasn't proud or gloating. I just wanted to survive my workdays without being someone's punchline. But the fallout wasn't over. Not even close. The first real problem came from the rest of the good OL boys, Mark's little circle. They didn't outright say anything, but their attitude shifted. Cold stares. Snide remarks under their breath. Slack messages that were polite on the surface but dripping with sarcasm. A week after Mark left, I overheard 2 of them whispering by the copier, "She ruined his life, you know. Freakin' HR puppet." They weren't careful about hiding it. They wanted me to hear. Another day, someone put a sticky note on my monitor. Just a little smiley face, but drawn with X's for eyes. Dead smiley. Juvenile. Stupid. But it shook me anyway. I reported it to HR. They said they'd look into it. Same line every time. I didn't expect much. And they didn't do much. Management didn't want another scandal. They wanted to pretend everything was fine. So they brushed it under the rug. I thought about quitting. A lot. Every morning before work, sitting in my car, I'd think, just drive away. Find something else. But I stayed. I told myself I had already fought too hard to give up now. Instead of quitting, I decided to move up. I started applying for internal promotions. Ones that would move me out of that department. Away from Mark's leftovers. I got an interview for a senior coordinator position in another division, better pay, different building, totally new team. My manager, Laura, had to sign off on my application. She smiled when she handed it back. "You're very ambitious lately," she said, in that fake sweet voice women like her use when they're really insulting you. I just smiled and said, "Doing my best." 2 days later, I found out someone else from our department, one of Mark's little buddies, had also applied for the same role. His name was Vince. Same guy I caught whispering about me by the copier. A real piece of work. He started a whisper campaign. Said I was unstable. Said HR had me on a watch list. Said I caused problems wherever I went. I knew because a friend from the other building tipped me off. "Be careful," she texted. "They're trying to make you look like a liability." It made me sick. I worked harder on my interview prep than anything I had before. I gathered letters of recommendation from other managers who had seen me work, ones who weren't part of Mark's crew. I polished my project portfolio. I walked into that interview like my whole future depended on it. Because it did. 2 days after the final interview, HR called me. I got the job. When they announced the promotion internally, some people clapped. Some didn't. Vince avoided me completely. Laura sent me an email that said, "Wishing you all the best in your next chapter." No smiley face. No warmth. I boxed up my desk quietly on a Friday afternoon. No send-off party. No farewell cake. Just me and a small cardboard box. As I walked out, I passed Vince. He gave me this smug little smirk, like he still thought he'd won something. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. I had something better than revenge. I had escape. I had freedom. But even with the move, the story wasn't over. My new team was great, for a while. The new manager, Mr. Powell, actually valued hard work. At first. But not everyone on the new team liked me. Especially not Stacy. Stacy was used to being the star, the one everyone leaned on. She didn't like me coming in with new ideas, streamlining reports, getting attention for improvements. She saw me as competition. And just like that, I found myself back in the middle of silent wars, whispered alliances, petty power plays. Only this time, I was smarter. Meaner. I wasn't going to let history repeat itself. At first, Stacy played it smart. She didn't attack me outright. She was all smiles in meetings, all fake support in emails. But it didn't take long before the cracks showed. If I submitted a report early, she'd accidentally delete attachments before forwarding it to our manager. If I suggested a fix in a meeting, she'd immediately chime in, "That's interesting, but probably too risky. We should stay with what works." Always smiling. Always polite. Always making sure it looked like I was the one making mistakes. I caught on fast. I started keeping backup copies of everything. Forwarding critical emails to my personal address, allowed under company policy if no confidential info. Keeping my own notes about meetings. I wasn't about to get blindsided again. 3 months into my new role, we got a huge project, auditing a major client's shipping errors. It was messy work. Hundreds of spreadsheets. Tracking down old invoices. It needed sharp eyes. I volunteered first. Powell agreed. Stacy tried to act supportive, but I could see the tight smile. The night before our first major deadline, she sent me a Slack message, "Hey. Heads up, I noticed some weird formatting in your audit file. Just a quick fix before tomorrow's meeting," smiley face. I checked. Half the document was scrambled. Some numbers moved into wrong columns. Names mismatched. If I had turned that file in, it would have made me look totally incompetent. Luckily, I had backups. Fresh backups. From just hours earlier. I didn't confront her right away. I stayed calm. In the meeting the next day, Powell asked for the audit file. I handed over the clean, correct version. Powell looked it over, nodded, and said, "Good work. Exactly what we needed." Stacy's face tightened for a split second before she smiled again. After the meeting, she cornered me by the elevators. "You're welcome," she said softly. I played dumb. "For what?" She leaned in close. "For helping you not make a fool of yourself. Next time, a little gratitude would be nice." I just smiled back, dead in the eyes. "Sure. Next time." I knew then, Stacy wasn't going to stop. So I set a trap. The next project, I deliberately left a file half-finished in our shared drive. It looked real enough, but if you actually used it, the final numbers would be off. A simple, obvious error. Easy to catch if you actually check the data. I watched from my desk as Stacy opened the file. 10 minutes later, she emailed Powell, copying half the team. "Urgent, concerns about OP's work accuracy on recent project." She attached screenshots. She didn't check the file. She didn't verify anything. She just tried to nail me. Powell called me into his office, frowning. I had expected this. I brought my laptop and my real project file. When I walked in, Stacy was already sitting there, smug. Powell said, "Stacy raised concerns about your recent numbers. Can you walk us through them?" I pulled up the correct file. The real one. Showed the complete, clean data. Walked him through it, point by point. Then I said, "I'm not sure which file Stacy used, but it wasn't the final one. Maybe she can show us?" Stacy's face paled. She stammered about how she found it in the drive, thought it was final, was just trying to help. But the damage was done. Powell thanked me for my time. Told Stacy he'd follow up. Later that day, Powell sent out a team email reminding everyone about file protocols, backups, and verifying work before escalating concerns. It didn't mention names. But everyone knew. And Stacy? She started slipping. She wasn't smiling as much. She started missing small deadlines. Started getting called into short, quiet meetings with Powell. I stayed calm. I stayed polite. I stayed deadly. Because I wasn't done. Not yet. After Powell's warning email, Stacy got quieter. She stopped trying to trip me up, at least in obvious ways. But I knew better. People like Stacy don't just quit. They wait. They plot. And sure enough, a few weeks later, a rumor started floating around the office. Someone said they heard I had gotten Mark fired because I couldn't take a joke. Someone said I played the victim to get my promotion. Someone said I was trouble. I didn't have proof it came from Stacy. But the timing was too perfect. Too clean. And Powell? He didn't do much. He was a decent manager but not the type to step into messy politics unless he had to. I realized something important then. If I wanted real safety, real peace, I couldn't just defend myself. I had to destroy her. The final setup, I knew Stacy loved attention. She craved praise. She needed to be seen as the smartest one in the room. So I fed it to her. In meetings, I started deferring to her. Asking for her expert opinion. Letting her lead small projects. Making sure she had just enough rope. She lapped it up. Meanwhile, I quietly built a portfolio. Documented everything. Saved versions of project drafts. Screenshotted Slack messages where she made minor decisions without checking in. I waited until she made a big mistake. And she did. A major client requested a detailed freight report, sensitive, high-value information that needed to be handled carefully. Powell assigned it to Stacy and me together. Stacy insisted on taking the lead. I agreed. I worked on my part. I kept backups. I triple-checked my numbers. Stacy rushed hers. Cut corners. The day before the deadline, I found a huge error in her section, wrong client addresses tied to the wrong shipment IDs. If it had gone out like that, it would have triggered penalties. Massive ones. Instead of fixing it silently, I flagged it to Powell immediately. Sent an email with the subject line, urgent, critical errors found in client report, immediate action required. I attached screenshots. I explained it cleanly. No blame. Just facts. It forced Powell to pull the report and call an emergency review. It exposed everything. At the emergency meeting, Powell asked Stacy to walk through her section. She couldn't. She tried to bluff, saying it was an honest mistake. Then she tried to shift blame, hinting maybe I had changed something after she submitted it. But I had receipts. Timestamped files. Audit trails. Everything. There was no getting out of it. Powell was furious. The client was furious. Senior management got involved. Within 2 days, Stacy was reassigned. Corporate Talk 4, we can't fire you cleanly yet, but your career here is over. She was moved to a dead-end data entry role on the night shift. No more meetings. No more projects. No more spotlight. Just silent, boring, invisible work. She lasted 2 weeks before she quit. The day Stacy cleaned out her desk, no one said goodbye. No cake. No party. No one even looked up. I watched from my seat, calm. She glared at me once, by the elevators. I just smiled. Not fake. Not cruel. Just clean. Like cutting the last rotten thread. After Stacy left, the office finally felt lighter. Meetings ran smoother. Projects got done faster. No more silent wars, no more whispered drama. People started treating me differently too. With a weird mix of respect and fear. Like they finally realized I wasn't someone to mess with. I didn't mind. I got my piece. I did my work. I kept my head down. But the thing about revenge is, it changes you. A few months after Stacy was gone, Powell pulled me into a meeting. You're one of the sharpest people we have, he said, looking serious. We're considering you for a management track. It should have felt amazing. I should have been proud. Instead, I felt tired. Because deep down, I knew how I got here. Not just through hard work. Through fights. Through battles. Through collecting ammo on people like Mark and Stacy and using it at the perfect time. I hadn't just survived the poison. I'd learned how to make it myself. Word got around. Quiet but steady. That I wasn't someone you could trust. That I recorded people. That I was dangerous to work with. I became isolated again, but not because I was weak this time. Because they were afraid. Even the people who liked me started keeping their distance. No after-work invites. No casual lunch chats. Just polite nods. I built a wall around myself to survive, and now I couldn't tear it down even if I wanted to. It all caught up to me when a new director took over our division. Fresh blood. Fresh eyes. She reviewed everyone's files. She noticed how many incidents were tied to my name, not my fault, but still. She didn't care about the details. She cared about optics. A week after she arrived, I got called into HR. We appreciate everything you've done, the HR rep said, reading from a script. But given recent organizational changes, your role is being eliminated. No warning. No fight. Just a severance package and a cold handshake. I packed my desk into a box. Just like Mark had once done. I walked past the same desks. The same break room. Nobody said goodbye. Nobody made eye contact. I was a ghost before I even hit the parking lot. As I loaded my box into the back seat of my car, I realized something. I had beaten Mark. I had beaten Stacy. But in the process, I had burned the whole world around me. No one wins a war without losing parts of themselves. I still don't regret it. They deserved every bit of what they got. But if I'm being honest, I deserved what I got too.